There we go. Hello, viewers. My name is Zach Hardy, and this is my WCPW Loaded Episode 2 review. Um, to be honest, I was kind of surprised that it came out 2 weeks in a row. I know they announced that it would be a weekly show, but I didn't think they had taped enough in advance. Um, anyway, uh, my name is Zach Hardy, and let's start out with just some overall thoughts on the show. This, looking at the comments, there were a lot of people saying that the first show was better. I have to disagree. I liked this second show. Now, granted, this was before the Jay Lethal and Alligero match, so people had some low expectations. At that point in time, it was a lot of promos, and I'll get to that later on. But there were a lot of promos, a lot of segments, and quite a few botches. But I will say one thing for sure: it was a better episode than their first or their pilot. I believe that it was a more well put together show than their first one was, and overall, I just liked it a lot more than I liked episode one. I have some notes written here. First thing I want to touch on is the crowd. Now, the crowd has they've been a bit markish over the past over the past 2 weeks. I'd much rather see them enjoying the wrestling for what it is than just having fun. I think they should watch the show to enjoy, not to just shit all over it. There were people chanting Bullet Club, people chanting Cena. There were people Hi. There were people some people ended up cheering, or I'm sorry, counting one number ahead of the referee. I just did not like it, and it kind of tainted the audience experience for a little bit. I think. I mean, I'm not a big fan of crowd right now. And the second thing I want to touch on is that there are way too many filler segments. Let me count here. We had just interviews alone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 interviews before the main event even started. Okay, and when you count that and commentary cuts, when they cut back to King Ross and Simon Miller, it was about 10 before the main event even got underway. Overall, just two things to touch upon. You need to cut down on the filler segments. Just make WCPW a pure wrestling show. You can obviously have some filler segments in between, but there was an average of about 2 interviews between every single match. And I mean, not even USW does that. They have, just like WCPW, they have 2-hour shows, 2 2-hour shows every week, and they even have there are very rare times where USW uses double promos or double interviews or 2 promos in between matches. So it's kind of weird to see WCPW doing that and using that with so much filler, because when it comes to the matches, there was only about an hour worth of matches on or an hour worth of wrestling on the card. The other 45 minutes was just talking and promos and build up. And I mean, I'm honestly thinking at some point in time, later on when characters are developed and such, there will be less filler. There will be more matches. When the performers are allotted to do what they do best, there will be less filler. But here's the thing: I am just not. I think there was way too many filler segments on this card, and I can only imagine, just like if WCPW was doing pay-per-views or IPVs, internet per-views. I can only imagine how many filler segments would be on that card. It would just, oh my god, it would drive me insane. But that's that, and what did I mention before? The crowd. Besides that, WCPW today was quite good. I quite enjoyed it. And without further ado, let's get into the show. So we start out with an Adam Pacitti segment talking about last week's actions on behalf of Rampage and Adam Blampied. Talking about how the security guard pile driven last week by Rampage had suffered a broken neck, and in retaliation to that, he bans the pile driver from What Culture Pro Wrestling. You know what? To be honest, I'm not mad about that. I think the pile driver, while yes, it is a dangerous move, and there are going to be a lot of fans who think, some, less experienced indie performers should not be performing the pile driver. I think this makes the pile driver a bit more special in WCPW because while it may not be fully on the wagon of banning it completely, I will be on the wagon of, saying you use it and you get fined. Because in that case, there are those rare occasions where there are big matches and big fight feeling matches, in WCW where they can utilize the pile driver effectively. Like it's a last ditch effort on, in the main event of a pay-per-view, of a WCW pay-per-view, and it's like, all right, I'm going to the well here, and they use the pile driver. They get fined for it, but it's a match ender. If you use it as a match ender in like rare situations, I think that'd be great. So while I am on board with banning the move to make it seem more special when it does appear, I'm not fully on board because I think if you had said something along the lines of you're going to be fined if you use the move, it would have made for much more allowance, yet hesitation on some performers, and it could also also could lead to good storytelling where it's like, all right, I'm gonna hit a pile driver, picks him up and thinks twice about it, and it's like, I don't want to risk it, and tosses him on the ground and tries to do whatever else. I think it could really tell stories in depth and really add another element to matches had you said just instead, you would be fined if you had used it. But you know what? I'm not gonna rag on it. So we get into the first match on the card, and it is the debuting Drake versus the debuting Primate, or I'm sorry, Drake versus the Primate with Susie Glasgow Killer Kennedy. In what was, a fairly decent match. I wasn't against this match. I did like the fact that it was back and forth. The Primate didn't just squash Drake, because I think they have something special going with Drake, and what ended up happening after the match was something that kind of built that feeling up. I think they have something planned for Drake, and by something I mean big things. But the Primate wins by pinfall. I don't mind. I think the Primate should have won this match. Quick note: Drake ended up getting busted, and I don't mean the rapper Drake. Aubrey Graham. Drake, the performer, was busted open in the back of the head, which added somewhat of an element of storytelling. Now, I don't think it was planned. I think it was probably something of a botch. But it obviously added an element to the match, and it made Drake look like a much tougher performer. Him fighting through the injury, made him feel much tougher, and automatically made him feel, much more like a contender for, some kind of championship. And I will say, this guy may be the inaugural, secondary champion. Like, if WCPW added, a global championship or a local championship, the local championship, I think Drake would be the inaugural champion. I think he just has that element of intrigue where it's like, I could see him being being the first secondary champion or ternary champion. But Primate wins by pinfall. 3-star match, wasn't bad. And we move into an interview with Gabriel Kidd that is interrupted by Prince Amin, who tries to get him to be his servant. And I don't. I'm not saying that I don't agree with the direction they're going in. I think this is an intriguing way to build Amin's character, but it just seems a little bit wrong in in wrestling, to have a servant gimmick. The only time I think it worked, and to a degree, was Virgil with Ted DiBiase. Even that was was a bit insensitive. But I'm not very much into this gimmick, and I'm not very much into Prince Amin. I mean, he turned my head just a little bit um, in today's show, but I'm still not on board with Amin. I think he's meant to be a jobber, or I think that's his real. I think that's the direction he's going to end up going into. I'm not big into Prince Amin, and I don't think anybody really is. I mean, of course, I'm going to give him time to develop, and for them, I'm going to give WCPW the chance to tell a story. But something just doesn't feel right about Amin. Anyway, afterwards, we go into an interview with Drake, which is interrupted by the manager of Alex Gracie and Lucas Archer trying to get Drake to join his stable, apparently now known as the Prospects. I think. The fuck? Anyway, somebody's commenting. Anyway, um, I I don't know what to say. I'm gonna try to let me see if I can open up the video to check your comments. Anyway, shut up. Anyway. Okay, back to loaded after that interruption. So the prospects. I think this is an interesting way of building up. I think Alex Gracie and Lucas Archer could have been a better tag. I think they're more well suited for a tag team than they are a stable. However, I'm not gonna bag on this stable. I'm not gonna bag on the stable. I think it's a really good idea to build up maybe a mid card stable that could elevate to the main event level at some point. I'm interested to see where the prospects go from here. And I'm interested to see what Drake ends up doing from here on out, because I mean, he's a great competitor. He's a great in-ring performer. I don't think there's any doubting that. I'm interested to see what happens between the pairing of Lucas Archer, Alex Gracie, and Drake. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this could be WCPW's Bullet Club. I think this could take a very interesting turn, the likes of which we're not really prepared for yet, but WCPW can pull off. I think it's gonna turn into something special, and I'm looking forward to it. And I would give the note right now: don't really hold anything out of WCPW's reach. Allow them to tell a story, because I think what they're doing at the Prospects is a great example of telling a story and having the fans allow you to tell that story. I'm liking where this is going. I'm liking what the Prospects can become. I'm just hoping they don't grow too much. Maybe 6 or 7 members at the maximum, but that's it. I think this stable could be really special and could really do something to boost WCPW up. So that's that. And afterwards, back to the commentary team with Simon Miller and King Ross on the tag team match and the Drake interview. Afterwards, there was a quote-unquote exclusive interview between Joe Hendry and Joseph Connors. that I guess was taken last week. In which case, Joseph Connors kind of made a little bit of a comment on the prospects and their attack on him last week. Yeah, last week. Um, and I like the direction they were going into, kind of building up a feud between Connors and the prospects. What ended up happening was the local hero, Joe Hendry, ends up coming into the interview and kind of taking it over a little bit and showing Joseph Connors that he is on his side. He will be there for him if he needs him. And the two partner up, and we see somewhat of a pairing. And it shows the likes of a new tag team. And I think this is very interesting. And this goes into the next match, which is Prince Amin and Gabriel Kidd versus Joseph Connors and Joe Hendry. One thing I would like to note, the ring announcer did botch Joe Hendry's nickname. Instead of calling him the local hero, he called him the global hero. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who noticed that. But you know what? It's whatever. But anyway, the match was, I mean, the match is somewhat of a talking point. I mean, hello, Sosa. The match was somewhat of a talking point. It was probably not the best. It was probably the least interesting or entertaining match on the card. There was a lot of stalling. There was a lot of hesitation between the two teams. And I give it 2 stars. I wasn't into the match. Joe Hendry and Joseph Connors got the win. However, good storytelling came at the end when Joseph Connors hit, I believe, the Future Shock DDT. Joe Hendry ended up tagging himself in and getting the cover, stealing the win for his team, which kind of shows a little bit of a split between the two. And while I think this tag team could be something incredible, I am really looking forward, and I was last week, because I immediately thought these two could really have a good feud. I want to see Joseph Connors versus Joe Hendry now. I really do. I'm really entertained by what they're doing here, and I think this may be the direction that WCPW is heading in. But overall, I think it was a very underwhelming match, and that's really all I have to say on that. And afterwards, Amin slapped Gabriel Kidd in the face, possibly adding the hair fracture to the teaming between them, kind of splitting it up before it even started. I think if there was a lightweight division, a light heavyweight or cruiserweight division in WCPW, Gabriel Kidd would be one of the front runners in that division. He's very talented, he's very athletic, but he's been very held back these past 2 weeks, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does in the future. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the direction that he goes in after today. Now, with that being said, there goes to another interview with Noam Dar, in which Jack the Jobber, or Jack G. King, ends up joining into. They have somewhat of an uncomfortable talk, and they part ways. So the next match is match of the night, and possibly WCPW's signature match. TNA has AJ Styles versus Christopher Daniels versus Samoa Joe, and that's the #1 match in TNA history. I think so far, Jay Lethal versus El Ligero is that match for WCPW. I really enjoyed this match. And just some quick notes. I mean, the match it had a great pace throughout the entirety of the match, and that's not something you see very often. Not even in USW, which has some of the most endurable wrestlers in wrestling. But great pace, a reasonable ending that did not affect the rating, and really built some character, especially from Martin Kirby, who we'll get to in a second. But possibly the best match in WCPW at this point. Ended after Martin Kirby's interference, kicking Jay Lethal while he was down, to end the match via disqualification. Now, I know a lot of viewers were very upset with the ending of this match. It was a really good match, and there were actually chances to fight forever, which I was kind of agreeing to, because I think this match was taking a Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura toll. I think it was getting to that point, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the match. I really enjoyed the story these two put on, El Ligero and Jay Lethal, and I'm really liking. For some reason, I'm really liking what Martin Kirby is being built into. Um, he's a comedic kind of wrestler, but he's also kind of got a serious notch to him. And for him to interfere in a big match like this, where El Ligero had an ROH world title shot on the line, it really puts some fuel onto the fire of an already burning El Ligero Martin Kirby feud. And I'm starting to like the shift that this feud is starting to go into. And I give this match a 5-star rating. First 5-star WCPW match rating from me ever. And congratulations to both these men. Put on a great match. Really enjoyed it. And moving on to afterwards, where Jay Lethal guarantees El Ligero a match for the ROH World Championship and tells El Ligero that he brought out the best of him and tells him how good he is, but sadly cannot give him a cannot give him an ROH World Championship match without the acceptance of Ring of Honor. But aside from that, great match, actually really interesting ending, and I'm looking forward to seeing what all three of these guys do. Because if you think about it, Mark Kirby also attacked Jay Lethal, so there's story between those two as well. And I mean, I would expect a Jay Lethal versus Martin Kirby match at some point in time on WCPW Loaded. But off of that, next we get into an interview with Susie the Glasgow Killer Kennedy, and the Primate, which is interrupted by Joe Coffey, who shoulder tackles the Primate, much in shames of last week. And Susie Kennedy holds Primate back a little bit as they walk away. Then we have an interview with Rampage Brown and Adam Blampier, who tells Rampage that he is the monster. He will not be told what to do. And Adam Blampier is, he pretty much says, you know what? You want to use the pile driver? Use the pile driver. What are they going to do? Kick you out? So we get into the main event, which is Noam Dar versus Rampage Brown with Adam Blampier. Overall, quick notes. Above average pace. I really liked it. Had a really great pace towards the end. Great storytelling and character development. The match itself was really good, or was pretty good. You know what? Fuck it, really good. I like how Noam Dar ended up targeting the limbs of Rampage, trying to take out his body one at a time to kind of help move the favor in his direction. I like how Rampage Brown still managed to outpower Noam Dar. But overall, I'm really glad that Noam Dar and Rampage Brown had a physical contest, because it makes Noam Dar look good, especially ahead of his Ring of Honor World Championship match, whenever that ends up airing. B, it shows that Rampage Brown can hold a lengthy match and really do well in such lengthy match. He can perform well in the ring, if you know what I mean. I only got to the camera so I can see the bump on my nose, because, I punched it. And C, it showed that Rampage Brown really is a monster after being able to come back from every single limb, being targeted, being beaten down, being battered and bruised. He was really able to show how great he was, and I really enjoyed it. Rampage Brown ended up winning after a sit-out powerbomb and 2 failed attempts at the pile driver. I give this match 4 stars, and at the very end, Jack the Jobber or Jack G. King and Big Damo ended up coming out to the ring. Jack G. King chased Adam Blumpy around the ring, and the show ended up concluding with Big Damo and Rampage Brown just beating each other or going away with punches to the face at each other as the commentators ended up closing the show. And it, declaring that the end of Loaded episode 2. And one quick piece of news: after the closing credits, Adam Pacitti announced the women's division would be launching in WCPW, I believe, starting on the July shows or July tapings. I'm really looking forward to that because I want to see what WCPW can do with the women's division. I want to see what WCPW can do that WWE doesn't do, that TNA doesn't do, that USW has never done, that WOW couldn't do. I want to see what WCPW can do differently from what WWE and NXT and TNA and USW and WOW and Stardom Wrestling and CZW and ICW and Mid-South, and Northeast Wrestling and Ring of Honor or Women of Honor, whatever. I'm really looking forward to seeing what WCPW can do that the other promotions, main, primary, secondary, or independent, can do. I'm really looking forward to all of that. Hello. You can come in. Are you on inside? Yeah. All right. Yeah. One moment. No. Hi, buddy. So. Anyway, aside from that, the women's division being announced, etc., I give the show an overall rating of 4 stars. I really liked it. To be honest, had the commentary been a bit better, had they actually done their job and called the spots, had there been less filler and more wrestling, and had there been the crowd didn't really have anything bad to do with it. I still enjoyed the show despite the crowd, but had there been better commentary and less filler, this show would have been a 5-star rating. But with the great wrestling that we had, most notably the final 2 matches, I give this show a 4-star rating. Some may be, some may say, it deserved a 3-star rating, and I may be being a little kind, but or a little too kind. But I honestly did really enjoy this show, especially during the second half, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next week. And I will most likely be giving you a review for episode 3 next week as well. So stay tuned for that. But anyway, guys, that's all I have for this WCPW Loaded episode 2 review. Rampage Destroys and Lethal Injection. Thank you guys for watching. Quick plugs: if you have any wrestling-related questions for the Hardiac Wrestling Podcast or any non-wrestling-related questions for the Hardiac Questions and Answers series, please send them to me one of 2 ways, either via my Twitter at Zachary Serra, that's at ZACHARYSERRA, or put them in the YouTube comments below, and I'll get to them in either a future episode of the Hardiac Wrestling Podcast or a future episode of the Hardiac Questions and Answers series. But anyways, thank you for watching. This was my WCPW Loaded Episode 2 review. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. I am Zach Hardy, signing off.